what I've learned about myself, the 4th of June, 2026. It is easy to distract oneself nowadays from what is happening within. Everything from drugs to work to social media. It is easier than ever to suppress our emotions, but they will inevitably manifest themselves in a different way. Mine turned to depression and then began the loop of trying to escape something that can only be healed from facing it head on, going deep within to find the seat where the pain first originated. But what if that is not easy? What if that requires more than just you? Where do we even start? How long will it take before I start to feel better? Is it ever going to get better? Was it better to remain ignorant? To continue to use my addictions to self soothe? Now that I'm unable to use my old coping mechanisms, how am I going to be able to cope with the decades of suppressed feelings as they start to surface? Never mind all of the new traumas that I've picked up along the way. Where do I even start? Where do I go next? One thing that I can say is that if I don't take this challenge on now, I will probably be sitting here again in 10 years' time, asking myself these exact same questions. What if we live in a world that would think this is normal? Do we follow the crowd and remain ignorant? Or do we risk being exposed? Put it out there regardless of what we are told. Fuck the haters, fuck the game. This is my life to live, and I'm going to be responsible for my own happiness and doing what is in my own best interests for the first time. So I think I've been going through this loop of feeling motivated to change. I start making changes only for my old habits to come back in certain ways. Maybe not in terms of being a habit again, but even just having a one time event of a way I reacted in the past then creates this feeling of shame and guilt for having reacted in that way. And I've also been doing a lot of research. My way of doing research is listening to tons of podcasts. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts to do with ADHD, ADHD, RDS, RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And that also left me feeling helpless that some of the things would be outside of my control and never change. And then throughout the day, yesterday, you kind of sometimes when you try to learn a lot in a short period of time, it almost creates this information overload and paralysis. There's so many things to do. Where do I start? What do I do first? Do I dive in fully into everything and give it my all? But does that risk me relapsing and going back to my old familiar patterns? Then I started listening to some other podcasts that actually made me start to feel less bad about my specific ways of reacting and how I've gone through my life so far. And I was just talking about the link between trauma and mental health issues, and even how trauma can be the start of creating I was basically saying that all the mental health issues that develop later on in life are a coping mechanism that our brain and body and nervous system developed to deal with said trauma. And that kind of makes complete sense to me looking back at my life, because all of the ways I feel that I react now were linked to um, these traumas of not feeling accepted, and then that turned on later into loneliness. That still then felt like whatever I was doing was not good enough, and that then it turned into a self-sabotaging prophecy of me not being able to accept myself for the way that I am, thinking that I am maybe broken, where that's another loop that I go through, is going through, oh, because I have my unique life experience, which has led to me being to exactly the person that I am today, that that makes me special. But then I go the next day and I'm like, no, there's something wrong with me. And then maybe there's something special about me. Then maybe there's something wrong about me. And also just living in a world where being a sensitive person does not really gel with how the rest of the world lives their life. But then what's also made me then not feel as bad about being the way that I am and having become the person that I am due to how I dealt with the traumas throughout my whole life is that everyone, no matter how they are, has generally become that way because of the traumas that they've had in their life. Whether that whether they've addressed that trauma or not, or have got to the point of being able to admit their faults, or not admit their faults because it's not something that that person did themselves out of any malicious place, but rather that they became that way because of their traumas, but then because of the way that they've become makes them not willing to look at how their traumas have turned them into the person that they are, or just having been sucked up deeply into that loop of trying to escape oneself by being a certain way. But I've just realized that now that I'm starting to learn about myself, that I'm starting to develop a passion for being in this space. Because one of the things, again, that all of these things relate to is like the connection between trauma, mental health, addictions. All of these are really just coping mechanisms for the trauma that we first experienced. Um, and that's now going to be my next mission, because until I am able to go to the roots of my own traumas, I'll most likely still fall into the patterns that I'm trying to break, the patterns that I've identified that I do not want for myself to be the person that I want to be. And yeah, I think what makes me sometimes go through my own loop of thinking I'm not getting anywhere is a lot of the time I'm like, okay, I've committed to this path of self-improvement. Why aren't I feeling better yet? But then realizing that it's just the start of a long process of self-discovery. And I think it's going to be, again, a start of a completely new trajectory for my life. I've spent my whole 20s trying to chase accomplishments, trying to be a pro athlete, trying to be the things that I thought I wanted to be to help me feel better about myself. But the whole part of being able to feel better about myself is actually by addressing those past traumas, because right now I get stuck in the same loop of feeling lonely, um, having someone come into my life, and then me following my same familiar patterns that then pushes them out of my life and then makes me feel a sense of rejection, which, um, again, what I've learned about ADHD and rejection sensitivity dysphoria is that even like a small event I can magnify 100 times and react in a way that I feel shows that I'm very caring and passionate about something. But then that same reaction makes the person react in a way that then multiplies my sense of rejection from that circumstance. So I feel rejected, I react, then I get more rejected, and then I feel shit about myself. So it's just this loop, a similar loop that I see manifesting its way in so many different areas of my life. And the only way I think I'll be able to break those loops, because those loops themselves turn out to be coping mechanisms. So until I can address the trauma that's causing me to have these coping mechanisms, the coping mechanisms aren't just going to fall away. Um, Also, now I'm really struggling with certain things, because normally I'd have my coping mechanism to go and use as an escape when something went wrong. Now that I'm trying to work through all of my addictions, all of those addictions were started from coping mechanisms, and now that I'm trying not to have those addictions, so too are my coping mechanisms disappearing. So I'm just actually, to be honest, sitting here is actually one of the best and most insightful parts of my day. Now, all my lights went off, so I'm going to have to finish it here, but I'll be back again tomorrow and every single day that I can. I might miss a day or two. There might be some things that come up that make me miss a day. I did miss 2 days over the weekend, but every single day that I'm able to follow my routine, I'll be here. So thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.